Joining me now is Anil Gupta. He's from the Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland and a frequent visitor to our shows. Welcome back. So first, let's look at the big takeaways from this Brics trade ministers meeting in Shanghai, and what kind of momentum will they bring into the Leaders Summit in Xiamen next month?
I think, if you look at trade among the Brics countries, of course, trade is relatively less among the five as compared to their trade with the rest of the world. Within these five countries, look at China, and obviously China is the big trade power. And so China runs a trade surplus, which creates tensions. China vis-a-vis Brazil, China vis-a-vis India, China vis-a-vis South Africa, and so on. So therefore, essentially, this meeting that took place over the last 2 days, and of course, the heads of state meeting that will take place in a month, I think it's very important, because if there are no issues that create tension, that create divisions, then there is hardly any value in meeting. Here, if you look at trade, and of course, there are other matters that the Brics heads of state will be discussing. So I think, there are clearly, if any solutions can be found to keep trade flowing more smoothly than in the past, but at the same time to make trade more balanced. I think that would be the best kind of outcome that one can expect on the trade front.
I'll get to those issues in a minute, but China did call on the Brics countries during this meeting in Shanghai to expand trade, increase policy transparency, as our reporter mentioned, and boost investment. So, we're talking, when you look at all these countries, the population involved and the money involved.
Yes.
What have been the roadblocks? What have been sort of the holdups in loosening trade?
I think trade is becoming looser for sure. I think, despite that, I would say the single biggest roadblock really has to do with the trade imbalance. Because when there is trade imbalance, then the countries which run a trade deficit, they become, let's say, wary of, further loosening. So, of course, all of these countries, they belong to the WTO. So in that sense, they're already part of a global free trade system. But of course, when we say the global free trade system, it doesn't mean that the barriers to trade are completely non-existent. There are tariff measures, there are non-tariff measures, and so on. And again, how rapidly do the Brics countries reduce the barriers that divide them on the trade front? It depends on really sort of, mitigating concerns about trade imbalance. So, if I look, for example, from Brazil's point of view, as the whole commodity boom has really come to an end, so therefore Brazil can't export as much to China as it used to, but at the same time, China is a much bigger manufacturing power than Brazil. So therefore, Brazil becomes somewhat wary. You look at India, for instance, obviously India is not a commodity country, but China is a much stronger manufacturing power than India is. So therefore, on manufactured goods, China has a whole lot more to export to India. But at the same time, if you look at potentially, so certainly in terms of services, India is a service power. So could, in fact, some trade facilitation take place to boost services exports from India? Probably it's hard to see in the IT sector because language, but certainly medical tourism is a factor. India has a very strong medical healthcare industry, strong medical tourism industry. So could there be potential opportunities there? India is a strong agricultural power. India is a net agricultural exporter. China is an agriculture importer. So there are opportunities there.
10 seconds left. We talked about issues. What about these outside issues with Brazil politically, the turmoil it has going on, and what we have between India and China right now?
Yes.
Will those issues cloud the summit next month? Yes or no?
The answer is, partially they will. At the same time, precisely because of these issues, that the summit next month becomes even more important. You see, because if there are no issues, then there's not a whole lot that's going to come out of this meeting. But because there are issues, that there is greater need for the leaders to keep talking to figure out how to resolve them.
All right, we'll leave it there. Anil Gupta, thank you. As always, we appreciate your time. Thank you.